Hello, Dr. Maya Ziegler of Monarch Family Chiropractic, and we are talking about a really important conversation about understanding how your immune system works tonight. If there's anything that has brought to the forefront our level of understanding when it comes to the average person of what our immune system does, how it functions, it is the pandemic of the last 2 years. I think that there's a lot of information out there and understanding how to support your immune system, how your immune system functions, I think will equip you to better handle the conversations, or at least perspective on taking in the details or what we're hearing about viruses, right? Or anything related to your health and immune system. So let's get started. So when it comes to your immune system, know that there are two primary arms. Okay, there's your innate immune system, and then there's the adaptive immune system. I want you to think about the innate immune system. It's your first line of defense. It is made up of natural killer cells, macrophages, white blood cells, and they work off of pattern recognition. Okay, so that means you are exposed to something, and that exposure indicates this is not recognized by my body, it is not a part of my body, and it just starts a trigger or a cascade effect of innate responses to fight off or take care of what is not you. Okay, it is always working. It is always innately a response to whatever you are exposed to in your environment. Versus the adaptive response is a more refined response. Number one, requiring it be activated. And secondly, it is an intelligence that your immune system learns over time and creates a memory, or really a card catalog system of everything that you've ever been exposed to. Your adaptive response remembers that, and when exposed to it in the future, it remembers how to respond and takes care of it. You know, this is when we talk about natural immunity, this is really where the natural immunity falls under the umbrella of adaptive immune memory response. And when it comes to your immune system, it's really, I bring this up because we need to understand the difference between exposure and infection, right? We can be exposed to things, but it doesn't necessarily mean we are infected. And we have to look at what is the health of the host? What is the health of the terrain when exposed to a germ, a virus, a bacteria? If we've got a healthy immune system that is robust and not focus on all other things to help with defenses and repair, we're exposed and we've got a healthy, robust immune system, doesn't necessarily equate to infection, right? But if we are exposed and our immune system is already suppressed and working on all these other things, we may possibly get infected because it doesn't necessarily able to innately or adaptively respond to that. And there are infection types that our immune system is constantly taken care of: bacterial, parasitic, fungal, yeast, viral, right? So I am simplifying many things when it comes to the immune system, but I just want you to remember there are two arms, the innate and the adaptive, and the innate is always working, always present. The adaptive is more memory, more refined in nature, and that will come into play when your immune system has learned something of the antigen or the bacteria, the virus, and when it's exposed to it, boom, the adaptive comes into play here. So I want you to understand there are three lines of defense. Okay, I just went over this. The innate line of defense, and this first line of defense is your skin. Okay, your skin acts as an impenetrable barrier, right? It covers everything. And whenever there's holes, right? If there's holes in the nostrils, the mouth, the ears, the anus, there are sweat glands around those. Well, there's sweat glands in every part of the skin. They constantly secrete an enzyme that breaks down any bad guys. Understand that the bad guys have a cell wall, right? And that cell wall is considered the brain of the bacteria or the virus. So our sweat glands secrete an enzyme that break down that cell wall. When they break down that cell wall, they break down the brain. Okay. And so within our skin, we've got these sweat glands that will destroy the bad guys or destroy the brain, which is great. And anywhere there's breaks in the skin, we have a mucous membrane that acts as a protection. And what happens is your mucous membrane produces mucus, which traps and kills the bad guy, right? So if a fly flies into your eye, what happens? You start blinking a lot, right? Suddenly you've got more tears, and all that mucus is meant to get rid of, trap, and then get rid of that bad guy. So understand, with this first line of defense, in order to trigger or to create memory within your immune system, you need to go through all lines of defense. Okay. And if you don't go through all lines of defense, that means that your immune system isn't able to learn about what it's exposed to in terms of the antigen. And I use the word antigen. Just think of antigen as anything that your body doesn't recognize as you. So that can be virus, bacteria, that could be fungus, yeast. It could be anything that is not you. Okay. Now, Calgary News, this is in Canada, they did a study and they found that vaccines, people who were vaccinated were actually asymptomatic carriers, meaning they didn't have the symptoms, but they carried the disease and they didn't look sick because that vaccine was injected directly into the blood and it didn't go through the first line of defense. Okay, so when you bypass the skin, you're not necessarily going to look sick. So going through this first line of defense is like triggering your immune system to go through a cascade of events to create an immune response. And a lot of time that immune response doesn't look so good. So the way I like to think about first line of defense, it's like your front door alarm. Okay, so you've got your house on the block, right? And the only way to get into your house is through that front door, right? So if somebody breaks into that front door, a burglar breaks in, the front door alarm goes off, boom, 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 and we know somebody's in the house. Okay. If that burglar breaks in through a window or they go through an alternative route, guess what? You don't trigger the first line of defense. Okay. So stay with me here because we're going to continue with this analogy. So let's just take a step back here. Immune symptoms, are they a healthy response? Okay, if things look bad, is it bad? So let's think about vomiting, right? Typically vomiting happens when we eat something bad, eat something old, eat something that your body doesn't like, and it triggers a response that is sometimes violent because your body wants to get rid of it as fast as possible. Right? Diarrhea is the same way. It gets into our digestive tract and our digestive tract wants to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Phlegm, right? Phlegm is really mucousy and thick. It wants to, and you think coughing, right? We start coughing when I get rid of that stuff. That is your body's way of getting rid of stuff, right? And so is it a smart thing to do to try to get rid of the symptoms if it's your body's way of trying to rid itself of a bad guy? Something to think about. Pepto-Bismol, actually pour it out on the counter, it turns into like a plastic material. What Pepto-Bismol does is you drink it and it creates a coating around the stomach so that whatever you're eating your body can't even respond to it. So it sends it on through. So that's a big deal. If you're allowing for symptoms to be suppressed, to allow for things to continue to dive deeper and deeper into the body, you're getting into a bigger scenario or a challenge to your system at that point. So where we have thought that symptoms are a bad thing, we need to get rid of the symptoms. I challenge you to think, well, symptoms are a way your body's telling you something's going on. And what is my body telling me, right? Start to reduce those symptoms or get rid of those symptoms. What is that impacting and how does that impact our immune function? Fever is another big one, which boom, we'll get here with the second line of defense. So again, your second line of defense is considered innate. So it's that first, that primary arm, and is always present, always there. And with your innate, look at this, non-specific white blood cell response. So this is non-specific, but it is responding as it should, as it always does. And I want you to think about, going back to our analogy with the house, right? The first line of defense, you go through that door, right? Alarm goes off. Your second line of defense is like a guard dog, okay? Guard dog is sitting right behind that door, and it recognizes anybody who does not belong in the family, it is going to attack, okay? Anybody, doesn't matter who you are, okay? And with your second line of defense, it's considered an acute inflammatory response. So what happens is you have guard dog 1, who's a mast cell. A mast cell makes everything really hot, makes things painful. And when the mast cell is introduced, what happens is it brings in more soldier cells. So it says, hey, something's going on. We need to rally the troops, and brings in more soldier cells, okay? So again, acute inflammation is a healthy process for your body to recognize something's not right here, and we need to investigate. Bringing in more soldier cells is that guard dog B, which is a cytokine. A cytokine is a soldier cell that releases a protein that brings in the army. So what a cytokine does, it grabs something off of the antigen and says, hey, something's not right. Something's not right. Bring in the army, okay? This is a pause moment, because if you guys are, if you've been tuned in at all to COVID, the biggest concern that there has been is about the cytokine storm. Cytokine storm, we can't control the cytokine storm. It's just inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. And here's where it becomes a problem, because this is an intelligent response. But if you don't have, what we're finding is, this is why vitamin D is so important when it comes to COVID, is that if you were vitamin D deficient, you were 15 times more likely to die or have, a worse response when infected with COVID. When you don't have appropriate vitamin D levels, that means that vitamin D plays a huge role in this cytokine storm. And so when you have the cytokine storm shows up, the army of cells flood to this area. When it's been enough, vitamin D says, hey, you're good. You're good. It's like almost throwing water on the fire. If you don't have enough if you don't have sufficient vitamin D levels, that storm is allowed to proliferate and becomes bigger and bigger. And that's where it's been a big problem with COVID. So as you can imagine, with this acute inflammation, fever plays a big role in your innate, in this second line of defense in terms of your innate response. And your fever, the average temperature, right? Average means the average, some people are a little bit higher, some people are a little bit lower. So the average is 98.6 for a normal environment, okay? To kill bacteria and to stop bacteria from reproducing and bringing more soldier cells to the area, let's say, you need to bring a fever up to 102, right? If that's, let's say that temperature that your immune system has recognized is what needs to happen to take care of that bacteria, should our goal be to break that fever? Again, something to think about, because what we're finding is in anti-fever medication like aspirin, Tylenol, ibuprofen, we actually see people are sicker for longer. Let's just think about this, right? If we have a fever, what happens? We get hot, we start to sweat, we're laying in bed, we want to throw the covers off and it's so hot. And then pretty soon we're like, oh, I'm starting to get shivers. I'm starting to get cold. Let's throw the covers back on, right? Your body is trying to regulate a very specific temperature in this second line of defense to kill off and stop these bacteria from reproducing and take care of, the bug, the antigen. Typically in the second line of defense, we are tired, we are drowsy. Our body is our immune system is shutting a lot of other I guess, processes down to take care of things. So typically we're not hungry and our body doesn't want us to eat anything because, hey, if we're eating foods, that takes energy away from our immune system doing its job. And I want you to see what a self-healing, self-regulating system looks like. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and I'm going to share another screen here. Let's go to this one. And I've got YouTube pulled up somewhere. Here it is. Okay, this right here. This is a phagocyte. This is happening always, no matter what you're thinking, what you're doing. This is happening, whatever we're exposed to. But this phagocyte is going after this bacteria, and what it'll do is it'll engulf it. It'll basically totally engulf it, swallow it down. It'll take apart and actually create some type of flag on the outside of its cell to for other immune cells, immunoglobulin cells, to recognize it. So this is always happening. You are self-healing, self-regulating, intelligent being. This is intelligence right here. You don't even need to think about this, right? And that's what's amazing, is you've got trillions of cells working within your body in this very moment to take care and manage and respond to whatever you're exposed to day in and day out, right? Whatever is going on in your world, that is happening all the time. Isn't that amazing? I love that. Oh, shoot. What did I just do? Okay. Let's go back here. So let's go back to this PowerPoint here. Share my screen. Right to my PowerPoint. Okay. I hope just watching that video kind of excites you. That excites me. When we're talking about the adjustment, it is to remove any stress between the brain and the body, and that's signaling to allow for a higher expression of health and vitality, right? So this third line of defense is the adaptive response. This is the intelligent response. So your innate response will trigger this adaptive response. And the innate immune system recognizes you. If not you, it attacks. Your adaptive immune system is very specific. So I want you to think about this. You walk through the front door, boom, that's the first line of defense. Your body recognizes this is not you. You have that guard dog who will attack anybody that is not you. Okay, that's second line of defense, is that guard dog. Third line of defense is you've got a very specific guard dog out there who's roaming the house, and he's looking for anybody who's got a red shirt on. Right? If you don't have a red shirt on, he doesn't care about you. But if you have a red shirt on, he's going after you. Right? So you've got these very specific guard dogs that your immune system has recruited to find a very specific antigen over lifetime, over your lifetime, and it remembers the antigens. Okay, so understand this is a learning process. This takes a lot of work for your immune system to learn about whatever antigen you're exposed to. So sometimes we see it as a delayed response, because once your guard dog is created, we call that an antibody, but once your guard dog or your immune system creates this antibody, your body's got to produce more of those. Okay, and so it sometimes can be delayed, or it seems like it's delayed, because there's so much learning and understanding of what it is that's within your body, but it creates a memory. So this is long-term protection. And so this is some of the research that's come out, is that if we talk just about coronaviruses, your immune system has a cross sensitivity to coronaviruses. So if you've been previously exposed to coronaviruses, your T cells, so one of these guard dogs, remembers seeing coronaviruses, and so it has an amped up response, a more intelligent response when you're exposed to, later coronaviruses. So you're exposed to SARS-CoV-2, which is super cool. And it is an anti-inflammatory response. So your T cells kill viruses in a very controlled way, meaning this apoptotic, that's cell death, but it packages these viral cells in a very compact, controlled way, and it takes them out and gets rid of them within your body, which is super cool. Understand, again, for your immune system to learn about the antigen, it needs to go through the lines of defense, right? Skin, non-specific white blood cell, then you get into your adaptive line of defense. And when you've gotten into this adaptive line of defense, because your body's been exposed to the antigen in every way, I mean, it's gotten the whole antigen, it sees all facets of it. It sees all layers of it. So when you have that cross sensitivity, it's because it recognizes some of the pieces and components of other coronaviruses, and it can create a more intelligent response when exposed. Okay. So this is what I want to bring up here in the few minutes that we have left, because if we are tuned in to anything in the last 2 years, it has been shared that vaccine immunity is far superior than natural immunity. And I don't know what happened in the last 2 years, but I will tell you, every biology book, every science book that was written, that we've learned about in school, that our medical doctors, our nurses have learned about in school, is natural immunity is far superior. And this is why. If you go through 3 lines of defenses and your body learns about and has memory of an infection, it remembers. And so if we think about a vaccine, right, that's injected directly into the blood. Don't go through line 1, defense 1 or 2, but we go directly into the blood with the goal to provide the immune system with a piece of the antigen so that your immune system can create an antibody to that. Okay. Why do you think we need boosters? Because when your body is given directly an antibody and it creates an antigen and creates an antibody to that specifically, it hasn't gone through the lines of defense to really learn about that. Okay. So that's why we need to give boosters. Does that make sense? It's like our memory of that is only so long. And so we give boosters to support your immune system understanding, oh yeah, okay, let's create more antibodies for this. But here's the thing, and especially when we look at vaccines, is that you're only getting one piece. If we talk about the COVID shot, you're only getting one piece, which is spike protein. You're only getting one piece of that virus. Whereas if you had, naturally gotten coronavirus, you see all facets of the virus, everything. If you only get, one piece of that virus, which is a spike protein through the shot, that's what your body recognizes, right? So I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying recognizing that, there are 2 facets of responses and levels of immunity when it comes to natural versus vaccine related immunity. So these are just a couple stories. This is from, we're over a year, there's been more, but lasting immunity found after recovery from COVID-19. So the immune system is more than the immune systems of more than 95% of people who recovered from COVID-19 had durable memories of the virus up to 8 months after infection, right? When did we tell people to get boosted? It's much less than that. The results provide hope that people receiving SARS-CoV-2 vaccines will develop similar lasting immune memories after vaccination. But that's, I think we're talking about a 3rd, even a 4th boost at some point. So talking about vaccine immunity as superior than natural immunity, I think is really a fail here. The U.S. is nearing immunity from COVID-19. So a new study from Israel, again, this is September of 21, a new study from Israel confirms that natural immunity of COVID-19 is superior to vaccine-induced immunity, even with the Delta variant. So again, I think when we're talking about a conversation around vaccine immunity being far superior, I think it's through a very narrow lens, just because we now understand going through those 3 lines of defense and how important they are to trigger a memory there. Let's see. Here again, immunological memory of SARS-CoV-2 assessed up to 8 months after infection. So, I mean, the studies are out there supporting what we've known for a long time, that natural immunity is far superior just because there is a memory component there. And I want to leave you with this. I'm going to go here first. This blows my mind. This is back from 2009. And what happened is they wanted to do a study of blood of older people who survived the 1918 influenza pandemic. So in 2008, these guys were pretty old, right? And what they found blows my mind. They said the B cells have been waiting for at least 60 years, if not 90 years, for the flu to come around again. So they're finding that these immunoglobulins, these cells within our immune system, were remembered and had memory 60 years, if not 90 years later after having the flu from 1918, and they were ready to do what they needed to do if exposed to that again. That's amazing. That's how amazing your immune system is. So my money will forever and always be on the body, period. But if we just go back to this here, let's see. Just want to look at this slide again, I'm not, talking pro vaccine or not. I'm just wanting to bring you information to start critically thinking around what you're hearing, because we haven't been told the whole story. Yes, COVID has killed many, many people. And I want you to understand that if you have an immune system that is combating lots and lots of things, and suppressed and working really hard, when you're exposed to a new virus or a new bacteria, it's going to not have as robust response. Okay. So the CDC study finds that about 78% of people hospitalized for COVID were overweight or obese. So if you were overweight or obese, your response to COVID-19 was significantly worse than somebody who wasn't. And they also reported that 94% of COVID-19 deaths had contributing conditions. In fact, nearly 4 comorbidities, meaning that when they got COVID, they also had other things going on, like cardiovascular disease, like high blood pressure, diabetes. They had flu and pneumonia, right? A respiratory failure. They had other things going on. So the goal will always be, how can you support the health of your immune system? Because if you have 4 comorbidities, your immune system is working all the time. It's exhausted. You add another one on, boom, not so good. So, the biggest thing is understand when you're talking about, the COVID shot, you're just getting a piece of the virus, versus natural immunity is getting all facets of the virus. And the need for getting boosters is because you don't have that natural immunity. You don't have that memory that is required for your body to make its own antibodies. So introducing boosters is the way we do it. So I hope that this was a conversation that brought clarity on, and maybe a different lens in terms of how you view your immune system. Your immune system is amazing. And one of the things that I think was so great about Omicron, and this has been shared, by multiple healthcare professionals and doctors, is that Omicron, thankfully, was, yes, very infectious, but the symptoms were significantly less, right? We didn't see the symptoms that people experienced with Delta. So it was much less with Omicron. And so when more people got Omicron, naturally, it really did potentially bring up the ability to get to herd immunity and get us through this pandemic. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. Your body is amazing, and you need to support your immune system in ways that we haven't heard about. So we're going to go over how to boost your immune system in a later workshop. But I hope this gave you clarity on how your immune system functions. And know that every time you get adjusted, every time, studies show a boost of white blood cells, right? So every time you're getting adjusted, it is supporting your immune system and supporting a brain that can better process and have higher executive function. So it's supporting your resilience no matter what's going on. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. If you have questions, please bring them in the office. I love to be in conversation. And again, Dr. Maya Kinzigler of Monarch Family Chiropractic, I will see you in the office.